Hi guys, Conan here. Today I'm just doing a quick training video on using the cherry picker and setting up the cherry picker. So the first thing to think about is when you get to the job, we want to do a bit of a dynamic risk assessment. So we're making sure that we've got some solid ground to set the cherry picker up on. We want to look out for manholes and avoid manholes on the ground. We want to also look out for overhead power lines. And the first thing we're going to do is park up and we're going to get the barriers out. I'm not going to do that today, but the first thing is to cordon off the area so that we break off the cherry picker from the public and keep them safe. So the next step is to start her up. Make sure it's in neutral. And make sure the handbrake's up. And then we can turn on the PTO, which is this button here. And then you can see this orange light come on. So the next step is we're going to need to get the keys for the controller at the back to turn it onto the legs. Now the keys are kept in here. There's two sets of keys. This one for the controller at the back, and this other set is for the safety ground controls, which we'll come onto later. So we put the key in here, we turn it clockwise so that the bottom of the key is facing this leg image, and now there's power on the legs. So these are the levers to control the legs. The front right one does the front right leg, the next one does the front left leg, this one does the rear left leg, and this last left one does the rear leg. When we're putting these down, we normally do two together. So we'll do the two front ones together until that's up. But before we put them down, we're just going to put the pads underneath to protect the ground and spread the weight. So the four pads are down. Now I'm going to start with the back two first. So I'm going to use the back two levers to put the back two pads down. And I'm going to be watching here, because when they're down and when the vehicle is jacked up enough and it's starting to get level, these two green lights will come on here. So that's what I'm watching for. So I want to check that my other one has gone onto the pad, which it has. So you can see the two green lights have now come on the back. Now it's time to do the front. So it's the first two levers for the front two. So I can see this one's come out of place, so I'm just going to readjust the pads. So you'll see that the four green lights have now come on, and this light has also come on, which indicates that the basket controls can now be used. So I've just turned the key over to the basket controls. Another thing, you've got a handy little compass here if you want to get it as level as possible. But when the four green lights are on, it's good to go. So when putting on the harness, always look for this bit at the top, get it nice and straight with the two arm straps, and then flop it out like that. So there you've got your two legs and your two arms. Then step in. So make sure the harness is nice and tight. Once it's closed, it should have a fist space in between here. So just a nice fist space in there. It's nice and fitted. Just going to put that there, and when I get in the basket, I'm going to attach it on. Get my lanyard and clip into here. So the controllers are here. You've got your emergency stop there. That stops the whole engine if you need to. To release that, you turn it and it pops up and you can start up again. Now, when we want to go up, we want to do the first lever first, which is going to take this jib arm away from its resting position. The next lever takes the resting arm up from its position. It's very important that if we want to turn the cherry picker at all, rotate the cherry picker at all, then we want to take this next lever and lift up the resting arm, because if we don't, it can break that arm. Third lever is for this jib arm to come forward and back like this. The fourth lever here is to rotate from left to right, but before we rotate, it's important that we check two things. Number one, that we've lifted the arm off the resting position so it's no longer on that leg, so it won't break the leg. And number two, if we're going more than 80 degrees, we need to make sure that that lower arm is not going to catch the roof of the cab. So I'm just going to lift up a bit more to make sure that we clear both of those things, and then we can rotate. I'm just going to show you quickly what will happen if you don't lift up the second lever to lift up the lower arm. The cherry picker will actually go straight into the cab and damage the cab. So before we go more than 180 degrees, we need to make sure that that second arm is up far enough. And once we're clear of the cab, we can go more than 180 degrees. The other thing we need to watch for is this other lever, is this other arm, the jib arm on the cab. So I'm just going to raise that up as well when we're going past the cab. Now we've got plenty of room to go around. So the last lever to show is this fifth one, and this is for booming in and out. So if I pull it towards me, it's going to boom out further away from the cherry picker, and if I push it back towards the cherry picker, it's going to go in towards the cherry picker. So I'm just going to bring it back to the central position and show you a couple of things to watch out for on the way down. Got the lower arm lined up roughly with where I think it's going to sit. Before we go down, we need to push the third lever fully forward to bring the jib arm fully in. We want to bring the second lever forward to bring the lower arm down. And what we're looking for is to line up with that cup down there. We want the lower arm to rest on that cup. So that lower main arm needs to be resting before this front arm is resting. So you'll notice that on the lever number one, I had the cherry picker high enough so that the lower arm will go down before this front one will touch. Last job is to bring this one down by pushing the first lever forward, and we're into the resting place. So it's important when bringing the cherry picker down that it sits in its correct resting places, because there's some sensors that need to be pressed before it will allow us to take the legs back in. Those are there and also here. And when those are in the correct resting position, we can turn this key back to the legs and we can take all four of them down together. So the other thing, before it will allow us to switch back into drive and take the PTO off, we need to make sure that the legs are fully up. So hold them both up until you hear the noise change, and hold them both up until you hear the noise change, and just check that the legs are fully up. So this other key that I showed you was for the ground controls. And when this is open, the controls in the basket won't work. And here you have the labels for what each of the levers do. And this can operate the basket and bring it down from the ground if you need to in the event of emergency. So the last thing that I want to show you is a safety measure, which is if the basket gets stuck in the air for any reason, sometimes a load sensor can get stuck and the ground controls don't work to bring it down, and you can't bring the basket down from the basket either. There is one more thing that you can do. So I'm going to show you in a minute, but it's take off this cover, disconnect the electrics from the basket, and also disconnect a safety valve that will override the sensors and allow us to bring the basket down to the ground. Take this one off here. Take these two off the back. So now I want to look for this electric cable here, which is the main power for the controls in the basket. Disconnect that. So this one here at the end that has the blue collar on it, we just want to push that up and turn it until it pops down like that. Once that's popped down, that valve has overridden all the safety stuff and will allow us to bring the cherry picker down. After we've brought it all down and we've reset it, we want to make sure that we put that valve back. So one more thing I wanted to show you is how to tilt the basket. So you can tilt the basket roughly 90 degrees, but it's important that you watch out that you don't press the basket tight against this jib arm or it will cause the alarm to go off and you could get stuck up. So to turn the basket, we want to hold both of these together, the yellow button and the blue button, and then we want to use the third lever. So you pull it towards us, it will turn it clockwise, and if we push it away from us, it will turn it anti-clockwise. Now it's important that we let go of the lever before we let go of the buttons. You'll notice that I'm still holding onto the buttons, because if I let go, you can see nothing happens. But if I was to hold the buttons, move the lever, and then let go of the buttons, you'll see it jolts forward. So we don't want to do that when we're working close to a property. So again, when we're holding the two buttons and turning the lever, make sure that you let go of the lever before letting go of the two buttons. Hold the buttons, turn the lever, stop the lever first, and then the buttons.